All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about a topic that sounds complicated, but is actually crucial: how public power really works.
So let me ask you, how is a country really run? You probably have a quick answer in mind, but hold on. I want you to think beyond the obvious for just a second, because most people's minds jump straight to the same place.
Yep, the government. And look, that's not wrong, but it's only a piece of the puzzle. Thinking the government is the only actor is kind of like thinking the quarterback is the entire football team. There's a whole lot more going on. So to really get the full picture, we have to do one simple thing. We need to separate the actor from the action, the who from the how. It sounds small, but trust me, this little shift in thinking changes everything. It's the key to understanding how power actually works today.
And this is where it all clicks into place. On one hand, you have the government. That's the who. It's the formal structures you think of: the presidency, ministries, city hall. But then you have governance. That's the how. It's the entire process, the real rules of the game, and all the interactions that guide how a country is actually steered.
Right, so that old school idea that the state just governs all by itself, it's completely outdated. In our world today, effective governance isn't a solo act. It's a network performance, a massive team effort.
So here are the three key players on that team. First, you've got the state, which regulates and provides services. Then there's the market. That's the private sector driving the economy. And finally, there's civil society. And guess what? That's us. It's citizens, nonprofits, community groups, basically everyone who's there to represent our interests and, keep an eye on the other two.
Okay, so you have these three big players interacting. How do you make that whole process work effectively? Well, it all rests on two essential pillars: accountability and, of course, the fuel that makes it all run: transparency.
We hear the word accountability all the time, right? But it's more than just reporting numbers. The best way to think of it is like a three-legged stool. For it to stand, you need all three legs. First, officials have to inform the public about what they're doing. Second, they have to be able to justify their decisions with good reasons. And third, this one is critical: there must be sanctions, real consequences for their actions. You take away any one of those legs, the whole stool collapses.
And what powers this whole system? Transparency. It's the raw material. It's the fuel for the engine of accountability. The whole idea is to turn government from this mysterious black box into a glass box, where we can all see what's going on inside. Because if you can't see what they're doing, there's no way to hold them accountable.
And transparency isn't just one thing. It's got two sides. There's active transparency. That's the government's duty to proactively publish information without even being asked, like on official websites. But then there's passive transparency. That's your right to ask for specific information and their duty to provide it. You absolutely need both.
Okay, so we've got these two big pillars, but they don't just exist separately. This is where it gets really powerful. They connect to form a virtuous cycle, a self-reinforcing loop that becomes the very engine of good governance.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures what's at stake. Because when this cycle breaks down, when accountability is low, you create the perfect breeding ground for corruption to thrive.
So the cycle always kicks off in the same place, with transparency. The information has to get out there first. Contracts, salaries, expenses, all of it, publicly and accessibly. That's step one. Once that information is out in the open, citizens, journalists, and watchdog groups can actually start to scrutinize it. They can ask questions, demand justifications, and basically hold power to account. It gives us the tools we need to exercise control. And that dynamic right there, that constant loop of information, oversight, and justification, that isn't just a feature of good governance, that is good governance in action. Let's make this super concrete. Imagine a city portal publishes a contract for school lunches. That's transparency. A journalist sees the price is double the market average and writes a story. That's control. The public prosecutor then investigates, forces the mayor to justify the cost, and ultimately charges them with misconduct. That is accountability, complete with a sanction. The fact that this whole chain of events can even happen is proof that the system of good governance is working.
So we've seen the theory, and we've walked through an example. But let's zoom out. What's the ultimate payoff for all of us when this virtuous cycle is actually functioning properly?
In other words, why should you really care about these concepts in your daily life? The answer is that the benefits aren't abstract at all. They're incredibly real. When this system works, you get less corruption. That means more public money for better schools and hospitals. You get a stronger democracy because we citizens are empowered to participate and keep an eye on things. And maybe most importantly, you build public trust, which is the absolute foundation of any healthy society.
So you see, this whole framework isn't just academic theory. It's a practical toolkit for every single citizen. It explains the real rules of the game. So now that you know them, the only question left is, how will you hold power accountable?